All right, welcome to another episode of Off Topic, courtesy of backsportspage.com. My guest at this time, a good old friend of mine who is so anxious to have him back on. So good to see him again, Jonathan Coachman. John, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, man, things are good. We're just we're evolving, we're pivoting, we're adjusting like everybody else in this pandemic. But excited to get back to work this week. I'll be doing Pga Tour live for the Pga Tour. So getting on my first plane tomorrow. I'm going to one of the hot spots, Florida. So cross your fingers for me, but I'm excited to go.
Please be safe. We, always with this whole thing that's going on, we wish everybody nothing but safety and best wishes. And I'm loving the background you got going on there too. And now, is that like just the usual backup you do when you do media, or is it one of those things where it is just wallpapered all over your house?
Well, depending on who you talk to, I mean, I do this big podcast, and they tease me all the time that I'm a shameless promoter, that I wear T-shirts with my name on them all the time. But I have several of these, and depending on what topic or content I'm doing, I adjust them. I work with the PGA of America. I've got one of those. Pga Tour, I've got one of those. So whatever makes sense, because branding within the brand, Randy, you know this, it's a big deal, and it's got to be subtle. So as you can see, my name is very subtle on this background.
Yeah. Well, I just literally have imagined, because there are some people, like, didn't they say like Bret Hart, like you walk around his house, it's just posters of him. And I always find that to be amazing.
I've never understood that if you have the ability to have 20 or 30 or 40 different posters and you're that big of a star, you should have a room that's just dedicated to that. But yes. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? I've been in some big stars' houses that they'll have them all in frames along certain hallways at certain points in their career. I think it's very cool if you do it tastefully. But a lot of big stars have a lot of cool stuff in their houses that most people don't get to see.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Like, I guess you're right. I think it's, if you have like a man cave in a room, like one room, I think it's cool. If you make it like your whole house, it's a little bit weird.
Yourself. Yeah,
it's a little weird. It's a little weird. So look, we're in a really weird time with just everything, with the sports, with I think, like you said, just your first time you'd be flying in God knows how many months. First off, what has been your impression from, I guess, we'll look from the different perspectives, the personal perspective and the business perspective. Let's start with the business perspective. How has this been for you as far as, not having sports? Sports has been such a major part of your life. It's your bread and butter. What's this been like for you?
It has sucked, to be brutally honest with you. But I'm one of those people, and I was just brought up this way. My dad, being a United Methodist minister, has always taught us to really live life and have faith that things are going to work out if you live the right way. And I'm really proud of the way that really the last 10 years that I've lived my life. And I believe that it all turns around and there's a positive out of a negative. I probably, if you put, and we don't put it like this, but if you put what I've lost up against anybody else's, I probably lost the most. I was very strategic in the gigs that I took in the last year to really build almost like a puzzle. And we had 6 gigs going strong. We took the XFL gig. We took the World Long Drive gig with the Golf Channel. And these are very niche sports, but when you're the voice of it, it can be very lucrative. So those leagues not only stopped, they're gone, and they're going away. So a lot of people, they put on social media, and it drives me crazy, Randy, but they say, oh, we don't need sports. The sports can just come back next year. They're not vital. And I'm like, wait a second, they're vital to me. And they're vital to everybody else that works for a sports organization or is attached to a sport. And it's just like any other business that's been hit hard. If you don't have the games, then you don't have the jobs. And so what I've started to do is I've spent this pandemic brainstorming. I'm an idea guy, and I've come up with a ton of ideas. And so now I'm trying to come up with things that I can do out of the house that would allow me to be home and see more of my kids' games on the weekends. Because that was the negative to it. Right, Randy, that I was missing so many games with my kids because I live in California now. I don't have any jobs here. So all of my work was flying all over the place. So I'm hoping, and we're on the cusp of 1 or 2 really cool things, that this will turn out to be a positive because I could be home more. And my kids are at vital ages. They're 12 and almost 10. So I'm looking at it as a positive because I spent long enough looking at the negative. If you continue to do that, it's going to continue to keep you down. You're going to have anxiety. You're going to be depressed. And you're going to wait for things to happen. I don't wait for things to happen. I go and make them happen, or at least I try to make them happen.
Yeah, you've done a lot of things as far as making it happen. But I got to ask, what was with the move from the East Coast to the West Coast, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, not at all. So when I left ESPN, and the biggest reason I left is I'd been there for 10 years, and they let me do the big shows, but they never handed me the big show, right? So I wanted golf to be my future. I love golf. I'm addicted to golf, and it's also something you can do till you're 70 or 75 on TV, because I'm not always going to look this good. You know what I mean? And so my ex-wife, we get along incredibly well, and we have 2 children. And she had a promotion with her job a couple of years ago. And it just so happened to come at the exact time that I was deciding to leave ESPN. So she asked me to move. So I did. My friends thought I was crazy. They're like, "You're moving with your ex-wife to California?" We live 1.5 miles apart. We moved 3,000 miles together. We get along great. Her job's going great. She's actually gotten 2 promotions during this pandemic. And
wow.
my kids are happy. And at the end of the day, that's really all I care about.
And that's amazing, because a lot of people can never say that. Usually there's always some sort of bitterness on something.
Yeah.
Wow. I think you should I think you need to write a book about that and how to make that work.
It's not always easy, but
no.
if you concentrate on that and you keep that your focus, you can get through anything.
Well, and it's funny too, because you were just saying before about on how things sort of just when the pandemic hit, projects sort of went away, and you took the golf. You said golf is your passion, and what sort of triggered that after ESPN? You made a brief return with WWE as far as the commentary aspect of it,
yeah.
But this is like a lesson to be learned. If you're passionate about something, take your skills and put it towards that passion. What made you decide to go towards the golf route?
All the way back in college, I played college golf my senior year. I love golf. I mean, my entire adult life. Even when I was at ESPN, one of the best 2-week periods I had was when we took Sports Center to WrestleMania, and then I did the Masters the next week, because me and Matt Berry, he's an incredible anchor at Sports Center, we did the digital highlights for 3 years at the Masters. So it was always something, even during my 10 years in WWE, then my 10 years at ESPN, I wanted to do golf. Well, ESPN doesn't really have golf. They have 2 days of the Masters, and now starting this year, they'll have the PGA Championship. But what I did was, a year before I left ESPN, I sent a note to a guy. I just got his email, random guy at the PGA Tour, and I said, "Here's the things that I think you need to fix to make your sport more compelling, more entertaining, more fun to watch. First of all, you need to hire somebody like me instead of the normal, mundane announcers." That was number one. And then we went on down from there. But I really believe this, that the future of what you're going to see are golf shows, and I think I'll be a part of them, that are much higher energy. They're fun. You talk about gambling, you talk about betting, all those types of things. So it took almost 9 months. And finally the guy texted me back or sent me an email back, and he said, "You know what? I've been thinking a lot about what you said, and at first it kind of ticked me off, because you were telling us that our product wasn't good. And the more I read it, that's exactly the opposite of what you were telling us. You wanted to make it better." And so they invited me to La Jolla, which is 60 miles down the road. I got to walk inside the ropes with Tiger Woods, Dustin Johnson, and Jason Day during their first round. And it was an incredible day. And one of my best friends anyway is Joe LaCava, who's Tiger's caddy. We lived close to each other, played golf in Connecticut. And so it was after that trip to La Jolla that I said, this is absolutely something that I need to do. But sometimes it takes a while before an organization will say, yeah, we're going to do that guy. We're going to have that guy. And let's just be honest, there hasn't been, over the course of time, any real black anchors, minority anchors that have been a part of golf. They just don't exist. Mike Tirico's about it. So I want to be that second big guy, and I'm committed to doing that. So I started with PGA Tour Live. They gave me a chance when somebody backed out a year and a half ago. Then last year I did 7 events. And this year I was scheduled to do 6. I'll end up doing 3. But we have other things in the mix, though. Also, I'm a new ambassador with the PGA of America as well. So I work with them, with Paul Millsap and Steph Curry are also ambassadors. So the 3 of us work with their programs. So we're slowly but surely getting our foot in the door, because when we get through the door, we want to explode it open. And that's what the plan is.
I hate to use the phrase of your good friend Chris Jericho, but the demo god. But how important is it to get golf back into that 12 to 49 demographic? That's the coveted one for television, right? That's the most important one. How important is it to try to get golf in there? because it has been for a long time. Has not been there for if ever.
No,
I think Tiger coming in, that was when it got there first.
It has blown my mind, Randy, that Tiger Woods, who's a Black Asian human being, has been the most popular player of all time, but really for the last 25 years, let's say. And yet what you see on TV has not matched that, right? When your most popular player is this, but you're not matching it. You throw that in that now more than ever, sports betting is accepted. Sports betting within the next 5 years will be legal in all 50 states. And one of the highest return sports on sports betting and the most popular is golf, because there's so many different ways to do it. To win, top 20, top 10, top 5, matchups every single day, fantasy with DraftKings, who the PGA Tour has a partnership with. So when you have those things, to your point, the 18 to 34 who do all the gambling, they need to be brought into the sport. And you've got to incorporate that into your shows. And the one thing that really frustrated me at the Golf Channel is they will not talk about it in their shows. But yet you watch any other sport, UFC, football, whatever, they're now incorporating them in their shows. They're talking about, remember the old days, Brent Musburger would go, oh, if they score a touchdown here, somebody's going to be pretty happy. Now you can say the Chiefs were favored by 7.5. They're up by 6. If they kick a field goal, they'll be covering the spread, right? You don't have to shove it down people's throats. You just incorporate it into your commentary. So golf is primed and ready. And it's also, Randy, why I work with the PGA of America, because they're an organization that could really pop off. And they've always been that teaching organization, right? They're the PGA professionals. And a lot of people don't know the difference between the PGA of America and the PGA Tour. Again, I feel like that's my calling. Make sure people understand the two organizations can work together, and you can have diversity and include everybody. And then young kids will want to play the sport, and it can grow, but not just as professionals, but you can grow the business of golf. And people can have jobs and careers and livelihoods in the business of golf. That's what I feel like my calling is now.
But also, too, like guys like Justin Timberlake and Steph Curry, who play, daily. Yep. Playing golf. How is the PGA not latching on to those stars? I know because there's a little bit of conflict of interest with the NBA, but a guy like Justin Timberlake, why are they not latching on to that?
Well, they actually just started last year doing a celebrity ambassador program, and Darius Rucker was the first one. And so I was doing a PGA Tour live last year, and then he was the guy on the ground in South Carolina. I think it was RBC Heritage. And he would do our commentary in place of our guy who was normally there. He did like 2 holes. He takes it very seriously. He's like an 8 handicap. And you're going to see that more and more and more. And I've also have several ideas, like if we revive the World Long Drive Tour, having a celebrity duos with a pro long driver and a celebrity getting into it. Having a team event with a PGA Tour pro and a World Long Drive guy. So, see, there's all different ways, whether it's celebrities, long drivers, because now you're seeing Bryson DeChambeau, and he's working with a good friend of mine, Fast Eddie Fernandez, who's our senior defending world champion from 2018, because we didn't play this year. So there's so many more of this in the world of golf, and you're going to see it. But unfortunately, Randy, these organizations sometimes take a long time to make decisions. And I've told both, because I've been on phone calls with both a lot this summer. I said, this is the time. You can't wait a year to make these changes because people are home, they're not traveling, they're watching, and you got to make these changes now so you start those viewing habits if it's not on TV, because now you can go digitally for everything. And I can do a show right out of my house if I want to. So we can't wait till 2021 to make these changes. We've got to do them right now.
And also finding a way to make it more social media digital friendly as well, because there's so much access, because you have guys who finish up hours before the tournaments are even over. So there are ways to find to incorporate the competitors.
No question.
In the broadcast as well, and trust me, I think they got the right man for the job. Trust me.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Well, and because listen, your track record speaks for itself. Look what you did over at ESPN, who. Well, at times ESPN thumbed their nose at what the WWE was doing, and you and I talked about this the last time you were on the show, is you were help bridge that relationship to the point where WrestleMania weekend and SummerSlams, and you guys were broadcasting live, and you're there on the front lines, and you put this thing together.
Yeah.
Can Can you talk about going back in time now, looking back at it, on how that came together and how you were able to help merge that bridge and make the WWE a household thing on ESPN?
It's one of the things I'm most proud of, to be quite honest with you. And I'll never forget getting a random call in 2015, whatever year it was. And basically, and they didn't tell me on that phone call, but basically over time, they knew their TV contracts were coming up in a couple of years, and they really wanted to cash in. And at the time, the USA Network was really the only one bidding on it, but they wanted to make a lot more money. So they knew they had to bring real networks into the conversation. And in order to do that, they needed WWE content on a real network. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I get a call, and they're like, fight for us. Try something. So I would go in, and I think ultimately it hurt me for how hard I fought. But I've always been so loyal to Vince McMahon over the years, probably to a fault, to be quite honest with you. And if he asked me to do something, I've always said yes. Yes, Vince, I'll make it happen. And so we did. And I pounded it so much that they allowed me to do a weekly segment that we turned into about 10 or 12 minutes. And then to your point about social and digital, we would chop that into 3 or 4 different segments. So now you've got numbers on 4 things instead of one long thing. And so those numbers just were in the hundreds of thousands. And then they eventually just couldn't stop the train that was running down the track. And I thought it was funny because all these articles were out there about, is Vince paying ESPN, or how much is ESPN paying Vince? And I would sit back, and there's a couple of wrestling journalists that somehow still make a living covering the sport or the content, and their stories were all wrong, but yet they were doubling down on every story. And I'm like, there's only 3 people in the entire world that know what the deal is, and I'm one of them. So I know that this is wrong, but I would sit back and I'd be happy about it because I knew what we were doing was right. And so for them to finally agree to let us go take SportsCenter to WrestleMania, and I think the first one was Orlando, and then the second year was Dallas, and then we went to the Masters right afterwards. And to be back in that atmosphere and to be there as an ESPN SportsCenter anchor instead of the coach from WWE was super cool. I was the first one to interview John Cena and Nikki Bella when they got engaged in the ring, and everybody thought they were going to get married. And then, of course, we've seen that fall apart over the last couple of years. So a lot of things have happened since then, but it was the right thing to do. But I'll tell you, they agreed to it begrudgingly. And then my boss at SportsCenter, who now is no longer in charge of SportsCenter, because he wasn't the right man for the job. And what drives me crazy about ESPN at times is it's always the next man up, but not necessarily the best man up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so you put somebody in charge of SportsCenter who has a big-time journalistic background. That's fine if you're working for the Washington Post. But you're talking about SportsCenter, you're trying to make it edgy and cool, and it's TV, and you want it to be entertaining. Then to me, you've got to be entertaining one, and then everything else comes below it. That's not how this gentleman decided to do things. So after 2 years of covering this, right, going to 2 WrestleManias, I walked in, I said, I've got the great idea. I said, let's go to Vegas for the Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor second fight. Give me a private jet, and then the next day was SummerSlam in Brooklyn. We'll fly there with my crew. We'll cover that. And then on the 11 o'clock SportsCenter on Sunday, which is the biggest show of the week, we do the greatest fight weekend of the year. It'll be amazing. He looked at me and he said, who would watch that? And I literally was dumbfounded. And then he said, but anyway, we can't do it. I've already committed 3 crews to going to week 3 of the NFL preseason. And anybody that knows the NFL knows that the starters don't even play in week 3 of the NFL preseason, right? So it was baffling to me. And he said, plus, then he just kept doubling down. He said, plus we don't have a deal with a private jet company, so we couldn't do that either. I said, really? I said, so Kirk Herbstreit, when he does College Game Day at 10 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning in Auburn, Alabama, but his game that night's in Wisconsin, he drives there? And literally, it was dead silence because he was trying to come up with a reason why his reason didn't work. And I literally got up. I said, you know what? This is why I need to leave. I cannot continue to work for people that have this mentality that aren't the right people for the jobs. And I don't hate ESPN. There's a lot of great people there. but you got to put the right people in the right places. I want to be an executive someday. I want to be a leader at a big organization. And that was never going to happen at ESPN, because once you're a talent, that's all they see you as. They don't see you as being able to do anything else. And I've got a lot of skills that I want to help bring young people up, give young people a voice. And because there's a lot of young people that have good ideas, but they're never heard, because top executives go, well, you got to be 35 to have any real good ideas. No, you don't. You could be 23, you could be 25, you could be 27.
Yeah.
So that whole story is why ultimately I left, because I knew I couldn't work for this man anymore. And I told him, I said, you're going to be out of your job in 6 months. And I'll be quite candid with you. I was wrong. And I can admit when I was wrong. He lasted 8 months.
Well, there's no topping that. I don't know where to go from there. I was just saying, because you just said with ESPN too, because like you said, they look at you like a talent, but there's also a reason why a lot of the talent has left. You look at guys like Colin Cowherd and Skip Bayless and those guys who help make their name at ESPN, who go over to FS1 and different places and have a lot of success. And like, you look at your success, let's talk back to you transitioning back going over to WWE for a second. Mm-hmm. What was it like going back into that atmosphere as a color commentator, but not going back into the character that you were before you left in the early 2000s when you were with Eric and, being physical in the ring? How much of a change was that to just sort of play that role of a commentator at that point?
It was a mistake. It was a mistake by Vince to make me do it. It was a mistake by me to allow him to make me do that. But the reason he wanted me to be that straight arrow is because of the equity that I had built up with ESPN, and he wanted that credibility that I brought over from 10 years at ESPN. The problem was I didn't know how to do that. I'm so comfortable being the coach and so comfortable being that guy, I could have slid right back into it. So being in that three-man commentary booth, my natural instinct was to be a heel, and Corey Graves was already a heel commentator. It was the wrong spot for me, and I hated it every single week. And I don't think people at home liked it either, to be honest with you. But the one thing when you're at the highest level is you've got to understand what's the right vehicle for you to be in, right? So I already had 5 golf gigs booked. And so I'd only missed one Monday night in 10 years the first time I was there. I missed 5 the first 7 months when I came back, which clearly ticked Vince off. And I could feel that. And so then Renee Young got to fill in for me one time, and the women's evolution was really going strong. And so they gave her the spot. And a lot of people on social media, which I don't read, I only push content out now. But at the time, they're, oh, it's great. Coach sucks. He was horrible in this role. I was like, I agree with you. And I'm excited to be off this role. I don't want to be in this role because that's not who I am. That's not who the coach is. So to be the main host for the pre-shows on the pay-per-views was perfect for me. And if I never do it again, and that's my last gig with them, that'll be fine. But that's my role if they're not going to let me be myself. But I'll tell you this, that PGA Tour, PGA of America, if I went back to being the coach, they would be fine with it. They don't want that straight arrow sportscaster anymore. They know they have to change. So if I ever went back, I would be the coach again. I would never be that straight arrow.
Out of all the guys you got to work with over at WWE, as far as on camera, between Cena, Rock, Austin, man, if you go down this list now that I think about it, Angle, you sort of got the Mount Rushmore over there. Who did you enjoy the most promos with? I have a feeling you're going to probably say Dwayne, but I have to I really do have to ask.
That's fine. It's fine. I was there. I started in 1999. I was right out of college, and who knew that was going to be the best time. And I never like to say, I wish it could be like that again, because to me, that's being disrespectful to the guys and the girls that are putting their asses on the line right now, because you never know when, in the 80s, when it was red hot in Saturday Night's Main Event, who would have thought you could get red hot again in 15 years? So it can always come back. You just have to change it. To me, the Rock is simply because he taught me when I was green as grass about everything more than just standing there holding a microphone. He taught me about timing, emphasizing words, understanding your brand within the brand, understanding what people like, how to be a great heel, then turn it around, how to be a great baby face, how not to do too much, but not to do too little, how to understand that if you've got 12 minutes and you want to go long and go 16 minutes, it better be great, because when you come back through the curtain, Vince is going to be pissed. So all of those things, people just think it was us standing there with a microphone and writing really cool stuff. But he taught me so much more than that, I'm indebted to him for the rest of my career, because he is, to me, the single most talented human being in the world of entertainment, not sports entertainment, but entertainment, I think, that's ever been.
If I would have told you back in 2000, 2001, when you were working with him, that he was going to be the most celebrated actor in the world in 2020, would you believe me?
I wouldn't have believed. If you would have said it like that, absolutely not. If you would have told me he's going to be a big actor, I would have said yes. But the moment that I knew that this guy was on another level, and I've told people this a million times, he's not made like everybody else. He's not built like everybody else. He is special. And there was a morning, or excuse me, a day when we opened up WWF New York, and it was Times Square right on the corner. I think it's Hard Rock now, but it was January of 2000. I just moved to Connecticut full time, and Howard Finkel, God rest his soul, was supposed to be the announcer. They shut down Times Square. There had to be 30,000 people out there, and all of the Entertainment Tonight and the extras, they put them in like this box, and there was going to be limos coming up, and then they would do the interviews as they walked out of the limos. Then at the end of that was this big stage that they built, and the big stars were going to get to talk to the crowd. And so all of a sudden somebody runs up to me and says, Coach, the limos are coming. You've got to do the introductions. Howard is stuck in traffic. Well, wrestling fans are brutal. And if they don't know who you are and they don't care who you are, they're going to let you know it. So I got up on this big stage. I'm like 10 feet in the air. And they had told me the first person was going to be The Rock. And all I hear is, who are you? You saw, get out of here. I hadn't even said anything yet, right? And so here comes all the limos, one after another. It was amazing. It was a January night. You could see your breath. There had to be 30,000 out there. And I go, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the most electrifying man in all of sports entertainment, The Rock. And they hit his music, and imagine Times Square with The Rock's music. He gets out of the limo. He's in a red jacket, a black turtleneck, sunglasses. He gives everyone one of these. And I thought to myself, and I'm literally getting goosebumps telling you the story. I was like, this is the coolest human being that I've ever seen in my life. And he worked the room that night. I remember Sugar Ray was the musical guest back then. And he just it was like he was on air. He just gravitated, and people wanted to be around him. He smelled amazing, right? Everything about him was cool. And you saw everybody from Diane Sawyer was there, from ABC News all the way to whoever else, and they all loved him. And I've seen people literally break down in tears being around him, because he is bigger than life, but yet he's also somehow as cool as they come too. So I just love him.
I was surprised that because of the relationship that you guys have, you weren't in Ballers. I thought that would have been an easy.
I tried. Unfortunately, he has agents that have told him separate your two lives, and
gotcha.
So he did that. I would have been perfect in Ballers. Are you kidding me?
That's what I'm saying.
So it was pretty cool that the last couple of years he has taken care of Roman Reigns in the Fast and Furious, Hobbs and Shaw, and then he got Cena into the Fast and Furious 9. So at least he's taking care of those big guys. But at some point, I would love to be in a movie with him for sure.
You know what's interesting too with the dynamic between him and Cena is, from you correct me if I'm wrong. You probably have a little bit more ear to the ground on that one, but those two guys like had a little one-upmanship for a little while, like not just on screen, but like off the screen too.
Well. And I've told John this because him and I were very close at one time, and I believe he wanted to be The Rock instead of be like The Rock. I mean, as far as how you do your career, and he would take every single thing that came his way, to his detriment, I believe. And believe me, I'm divorced, so I'm not one to talk on relationships to say what works and what doesn't work, but I told him, and anybody that's watched the show, I'm not talking out of school here. He said this on the Bella show. He didn't want to be an absentee father. He knew he always wanted to be on the road, and he didn't want to be that dad who was gone all the time and making the mother stay home. But I told him, I said, Rock does it. He just spends the money to make sure his family goes where he goes. He takes his gym with him. It just takes an investment, but you can do it. And I've told him, I said, there is no better joy than waking up in the morning and walking in and seeing your kid or your kids sleeping. And you're like, man, if I've done nothing else correct in my life, I've done something right there. I said, and you're going to miss out on that. And that's his choice. And that's fine. But I think because he wanted to be like The Rock so badly that he sacrificed other, what I consider incredibly important things in a person's life. And I hope that at the end of the day, he's happy with that. He certainly is an incredible success. I mean, he went for 6 months to shoot a movie with Jackie Chan. And those are the type of things that he's talking about. So yeah, for a while there was that one-upmanship because he hadn't made it yet, right? So Rock was coming back, and they would throw Rock right into a main event with Cena when Cena was out there grinding 4 or 5 days a week on the road and still doing every TV show that came his way. So I think now Cena's realized, okay, I'm on this level. This is who I am. I've been in the biggest movies, and I don't need to compete anymore. I can just be. And that's okay.
Before we wrap up, I want to just get your opinion on a couple of sports that are now coming back. The NBA is coming back, Major League Baseball. I watched some of the preseason baseball games last night for the first time without fans in the stadium. Looked a little weird. Let's real quick talk about what do you feel about, let's start with the NBA, the bubble situation. They're going to be playing in a bubble, coming back. A lot of people feel that this is really not going to get off the ground or that it's not going to be completed. What's your take on it?
I completely feel the opposite. What happens is right now, because I've been in the TV newsrooms, and they want to do what brings ratings. And to me, it's the sickest thing you can do in TV, especially right now. There's nobody giving the real story and the real numbers and the real, you talk about death rates and it's 0.00002%. You've got Russell Westbrook. All these guys are getting it and recovering. And I understand there's some of those outliers, but at some point you've got to learn to live with this. And we've got to live our lives with this being in existence. And we've seen I watch a lot of Korean baseball at 2:00 in the morning out here. And I promise you, if they pump into the stadium, like the MLS has been incredible with their tournament comeback. Once it gets started, I don't think you're going to hear any of that again. It's a great storyline. People love to be in fear. And so that's what the TV networks are giving them, fear, instead of giving them the right data. And so once they get going, if you look at the PGA Tour, they had a couple of positive tests. Did Monahan shut the tour down? No. They adjusted a little bit. They included some other people. And all of a sudden now, 2 or 3 weeks later, do you hear any stories from the PGA Tour on COVID? None. What about MLS? 2 teams drop out. Oh, they're never going to be able to play it. Their games have been amazing because they have gone forward, and those teams haven't been in it. In Major League Baseball, it's going to be the same way. The NBA is going to be the same way. Once we get up and rolling, you're not going to see those stories anymore, and we're going to learn how to live and play with the COVID in existence. You just got to get it going.
That's fair, and you're 110% correct. I think there's a lot of people who are just skeptical and, like you said, looking for fear. And I don't think personally, I still have that feeling with the NFL. I think the NFL is going to be the toughest one, just because there are so many people. But we'll definitely be able to touch and go. A couple questions left. I want to get your Mount Rushmore. 2 Mount Rushmores from you. One, your personal athletes, and the other we'll do a WWE one. But let's do your personal athletes first. I'll share mine as well. Please, you can go first. I'll go first, actually.
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, so I'm a basketball fanatic, as you know. I'm an NBA guy. So I have two NBA guys in there, 1 baseball, 1 football. Number 1, because I was with the Nets for as long as I was, and I got to see him play every night. Jason Kidd is my guy. Jason did things I'd never seen on the floor, and there was that commercial he did during the NBA playoffs where the doctor was behind him and going like this. And he's like, "Doc, why are you moving your hands?" And he's looking straight ahead. And I'm like, that couldn't be any more accurate. And he's just as nice as a human being as he is as great of a player. So he is number 1 on my list. I had to do some shuffling around because after I watched The Last Dance, and I got to get your opinion on that too. But Michael Jordan, and I got to tell you, I'm not saying that he is the most as a role model that everyone should be, but if you're an athlete, your desire to win and be the best should match. If you don't match his desire to want to win and be the best, then maybe you're in the wrong business, because he is just something like making up that story about LeBradford Smith. I don't know if you remember that part of it where he said, where he needed a reason to come out the next night to blow him up. That's crazy. And then being in New York, not because of his play, because I get a lot of criticism saying, how can you say that he's on a Mount Rushmore for anything? But just his poise on how he handled the New York media, because you know this area, on how difficult the New York media can be and how the New York fans can be. I put Eli Manning there just because he was able to endure all of that and still come out the other end being beloved by Giants fans. And when he retired this year, the beatings he's took as a player, not having an offensive line since 2013, and winning two Super Bowls and being able to handle the press, he's there. And then Derek Jeter, who is the master of letting you on the front porch but not letting you in the house as far as the media is concerned. And, of course, his Hall of Fame career. So that's mine.
That's your 4. And what I love about Mount Rushmore's is when, and it's mostly people on social media, and that's why I don't read it anymore. They're like, you're crazy, you're stupid. That's your Mount Rushmore.
Exactly.
You're allowed to have your Mount Rushmore, because to me, it's what made me feel good. It's the reason I watched. And so I respect that, completely respect that. My Mount Rushmore for sports is my 3 favorites. Tiger Woods is number 1. He will always be number 1. I used to take a beating 10 years ago because all the people who are holier than thou that have never done a thing in their lives, you cowboy, Tiger Woods did this and he cheated on me. I don't care. We've all done stupid stuff, and I guarantee you that your glass house is just about as big as his glass house. So, but to me, Tiger's given me more great days and more great Sundays than any human being alive, and I'm forever grateful for that. Michael Jordan is my number 2. The reason he's not number 1 is because I love golf as more than I love basketball, and I played college basketball. But the thing I love about Michael, to your point, is he's a killer, and it's why my number 3 athlete, LeBron James, will never be 2 or 1, because I've never felt like, and maybe it's the way he plays, he's never had that killer mentality. There was that great line in The Last Dance where Michael got really teared up. It was right before a break, and he's like, "You can say what you want about me. If you don't want to play that way, then don't play that way." Break. And like tears almost coming down his face. We should not, and I'm a lot like this. And I know at times it has hurt me in my career because I have the killer mentality. And I do feel like in certain aspects, I'm the best one out there. And if you don't believe that on the inside, how are you supposed to project that on the outside? And no matter what you're doing, and I tell my kids this every single time that they don't do something as hard as they should, that I don't care what I'm doing. You're going to get everything from me. I don't care if it's this interview. I don't care if it's the run I'm getting ready to go on. I don't care if it's me at the pool swimming laps. You're going to get everything you have from me every single time I do it, because that's what I feel like those people deserve. You deserve that today. Everybody deserves my best at all times. And that's how Michael Jordan lived. That's how Michael Jordan continues to live. And now he's doing so many amazing things with the wealth that he has accrued and building the facilities that he's doing. But he doesn't do it to get attention. He just does it now. And I believe that everybody should have that killer mentality, and we'd be a lot better off and a lot farther along than we are in some aspects of our career. So my fourth, man, I've always just said my favorite 3. So if I had to throw a 4th one in there, I would say it's got to be Patrick Mahomes. I'm a diehard Kansas City Chiefs fan, but also I never understand why you can't put contemporaries in the all-time greats. It's almost like they have to retire before you say he's one of the all-time greats. He is showing us right now that he has all-time greatness in his DNA. He's already got a Super Bowl. He's already got the biggest contract of all time, and he's my guy. And the voice of the Chiefs is one of my favorites. It helped me get my first job, Mitch Holthus. And so I'm very connected to the team. So those would be my 4.
Okay, and then you and I should probably do our WWE ones, because that's how you and I got connected.
Of course.
For me, because I've been watching since I was 9. My first time I ever watched wrestling was WrestleMania 5. Okay. So I know he's got a very bad reputation behind the scenes, and he's not with us anymore. But I grew up an Ultimate Warrior fan, and for some reason he's always there. Shawn, I can't remember Shawn Michaels having a bad match. Steve Austin, just because with Steve, and look, you took some shots from Steve. I'm pretty sure he potatoed you once or twice. He's just he was something special. And then as much as I want to say either Bret Hart or The Rock, I just think, like, because you said in our past interview, because he was able to pick it up so quickly and he was just so good with everything, was Kurt Angle. Kurt was just, when he was, the comedy stuff was one thing, but when he was able to go in the ring and he was able to do those matches with Benoit and he was able to go into TNA and had those matches with Samoa Joe and AJ Styles and all those other guys, man, you didn't realize how good he was.
There's nobody that's been better in the ring than Kurt Angle. And for people who don't understand that, they never got to see it in person. This dude at his height, and I really wish he never would have had the issues with substance, because he could have legitimately been the all-time greatest in the ring for 20 years. For me, Rock's number one, entertainment value, money, the whole deal. Stone Cold's number two, because nobody's made more money marketing in wrestling than Stone Cold Steve Austin. I will say this, we get along great now, and we always got along well, but there was a time when I was kind of over as a heel, even though a lot of the boys don't like to admit it, because I would get matches that they wouldn't get. And back then, the way the pay-per-view bonuses worked, I'd have to walk around with my head on a swivel because I felt like I was taking money out of their pocket. But I was supposed to wrestle Stone Cold on one of these pay-per-views. And
yes.
he thought it was beneath him. And so he didn't show up.
I remember that. 2005.
Right. Yeah.
2005.
And that, who knows how much money that cost me, but I'm over it now. It's been 15 years. And we had an incredible moment last year, right before it was the Raw 25th, or one of those big shows. And he was supposed to come out and end the show. And he was incredibly nervous backstage. And he actually said it in his promo when he got to the ring, which surprised me. But I saw him pacing and I saw his hands shaking. And I walked up and said, "Are you okay?" And again, this is the leader that comes out of me. And this is why I want to do it so badly. Because even with guys like Stone Cold, the ego, when you've been away for so long, is still, you forget who you are. And he's like, "I don't know if the fans are going to react. I don't know if they're going to remember me." All of these things. And I said, "You're Stone Cold Steve Austin. I don't care if it's 40 years from now. They're going to remember you're one of the greatest and baddest dudes of all time. So you go out there and you drink beer like you've always drank beer." And he went out and he actually said that I said that to him in the promo, which was awesome. And I just think he's incredibly talented, and he's great as a host too. He's very underrated as a show host as well. And then my fourth one, it comes down to between Rick and Sean. I never put Hulk Hogan in because to me, you've got to put, sometimes character has to matter, and also you got to have more than two moves. So Sean, and then I'll say Rick or the Undertaker, but I'll say Rick. I'll say Rock, Stone Cold, and Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels.
Let's do some plugs because I have to ask you about Cameo, because I know that you're on there, and let's do some plugs where people can find you, and you can also let us know Cameo as well.
Well, I'll be on Pga Tour Live this week. I work for the Pga Tour, so I'll be doing the 3M Open. Matthew Wilson, defending champion. I'll be doing the first FedEx Cup event, which I'm excited about, the Northern Trust as well. PGA of America, we've got the PGA Championship coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll have hopefully some announcements coming in the next week there. Cameo, I just did my 509th Cameo video, and where I'm I found a niche that I can be a heel on Cameo, and people love it. So people will buy these videos, and I started just to connect with people, and now they have me talking trash. They have me reading off fantasy football orders of drafts, all kinds of different things. And I just told you, I put my heart and soul into it. I get so many good notes back because they're like, "Wow, you really, I'll send like 3.5, 4 minutes of videos. And I see some people that give like 15 seconds. I'm like, "You charged $100 for that? Come on." And so I think that's why I've been so popular. Plus, I'm priced right. I had to raise my prices from $25 to $40 because I was having, during the pandemic, I was doing 12 to 15 a day. And I said, this is way too many. And I thought raising my prices would knock down the demand. It's just gotten even hotter. So I do probably 5 to 15 a week, and they're a ton of fun, and people get way more than their money's worth when I do it. And I love doing them. So that's how I've been spending my time right now.
There was one of the wrestlers from AEW, MJF. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, and he charges $500 on Cameo, And he even said in his description, the only reason I'm doing this is I'm bored. Good luck affording it.
and I guarantee you how many he has sold probably looks like this.
I think he did one.
Looks like this.
I think he did one, and someone did it as a trash talk thing, and he trash talked them back. So
yeah, I mean, so I do know this that Ice-T, when they were trying to sell me on it, Ice-T 2 years ago, the first year, made $80,000 doing cameo videos, and he charges $300. But he's Ice-T, and he's also on a big TV show too. So he's not. I mean, NJF. If he came down to 100, he'd make so much more money than pricing yourself out. You got to be at the right price on Cameo.
Well, he's also 23, so he'll learn.
That's true. That's true.
He'll get there. And Coach, I'll ask you to hang on for 1 second, but I really do want to appreciate you coming on today, man. Thank you so much. This was fun. I felt like this was, overdue for us. We sort of needed to catch up a little bit, so I really appreciate it, and I really thank you so much.
I've got a lot of respect for you. I've always enjoyed talking to you, and people like you are the reason I still enjoy doing this so much. So thank you for being a gentleman and having me on, and let's do it again in 2 years.
You got it. Hold on 1 second, Coach. Guys, thanks very much for watching. I'll be back tomorrow with probably doing some NFL stuff. So we'll see you then. Off topic, courtesy of backsportspage.com.